Thank you. Good evening. Welcome to Beaumont City Council Special Council meeting, second meeting of the evening for Tuesday, July 16th here in City Council chambers. I'll call meeting order at 7:20 in the evening. Our first order of business is to do the land acknowledgement, which I'll do at this point. The City of Beaumont respects the histories, language, and culture of all First Peoples of this land, whether it be a First Nation, Métis, or Inuit descent, and appreciates that their presence continues to enrich vibrant communities across the land. As we gather here in Treaty 6 territory in the homeland of the Métis Nation, we acknowledge that we are all treaty people and have ongoing responsibilities to protect and honor the treaty, the inherent rights of the people, and the land. All right, first item of business we have this evening. A second is to adopt the agenda. Madam Clerk, any changes to the agenda this evening? Your mic is on. There you go.
Yeah. Yes, Mayor, there is a deletion. Item 4.2, Chief Administrative Officer's Priorities Discussion to be deleted from the agenda.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Appreciate that. We'll take that off. Is a member of council willing to move the adoption of the agenda as amended? I'll make that motion that the July 16, 2024 special council meeting agenda be adopted with the following deletion. Item 4.2, Chief Administrative Officer's Priorities Discussion. Any discussion on the motion on the adoption of the agenda? Seeing none, council, would you please vote on the amended agenda? That carries unanimously, 7-0 in favor. Thank you, council. First item of business is item 3.1, 10-year capital plan overview. Mr. DeBlanco, I believe you're presenting this evening. Let me get your mic on for you, and you can begin when you're ready. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, council. This evening, administration has brought forward the report on a 10-year capital plan, give council an early opportunity to review it. Included as attachment 1 is the 2024 version of the plan, which has now been rolled forward for 2025. The data within is compiled from various approved master plans, models, asset replacement schedules, as well as other relevant documents. Obviously, the capital requirements are substantial to maintain current assets and keep up with the expected growth of the city. Currently, this plan is considered unfunded. Administration is currently working on validating the costs, ensuring the completeness of the listing, as well as prioritizing what will ultimately be proposed as funded in administration's proposed budget for 2025. This review and prioritization process includes confirming the operating impacts of capital projects, given the economic state of 2024-2025, reviewing new and updated projects, as well as phasing. The phasing and timing of future capital projects is contemplated to plan for funding sources, which vary. Link any related projects to create efficiencies, as well as consider the overall impact on the tax levy. Specifically on funding, there's obviously a finite amount of funding available. Other considerations that need to be considered beyond funding or eligibility for the funding that we have, be it grant funding, debt limits, debt servicing limits, and availability of future funding. So on government transfers, which is the growth funding pool, really, the city receives 2 main annual grants, one being the newly named Local Government Fiscal Framework, which is formerly MSI, and that is $2.4 million for 2024. The other being the Canada Community Building Fund, once again, formerly the Federal Gas Tax Fund. The amount the city received was $1.2 million in 2023. So this pool of $3.6 million is annually added to the city's grant pool, and this is attributed directly to growth projects. The city transfers $0.7 million from its municipal operating budget directly to fund smaller growth projects such as fleet as equipment. This is known as the pay-as-you-go. As the city takes on more contributed infrastructure, increased funding of this type, this pay-as-you-go type, will be required to respond to these new growth and add to the city's fleet to maintain this infrastructure. It's transferred directly from the operating budget, the municipal operating budget, so any increase would have an impact on taxes. Administration delivered a detailed report on pay-as-you-go in March 2023. It outlined what the shortfall is based on previous analysis, and that's approximately $1.8 million. Next funding source, once again, particularly focused on growth projects, is debt. Careful consideration obviously needs to be undertaken when considering debt funding. As of the end of 2023, the city's used 46% of its debt limit and 24% of its debt servicing limit. Once again, any debt required has an impact on the tax levy. Once again, paying back that debt service comes from taxes. Lastly, reserves, as mentioned earlier in the report, there's a prioritization on the city's budget, and renewal and replacement is the highest priority. In doing so, the city needs to ensure that reserve balances are adequate to sustain and maintain this infrastructure. 2024's budget includes allocations of reserves of 5.6 million. 4 million of this comes from taxes and 1.6 million comes from utility rates. Administration review these reserve balances and allocations as part of the budget process. And if it is determined that these allocations are insufficient, an increase to taxes and or utility rates may be required to boost these up. Lastly, one of the most crucial areas that needs to be contemplated when bringing on more capital infrastructure is the funds to maintain it, the operating impacts of capital. These impacts include, but are not limited to, new personnel, any ongoing operating expenses and maintenance, reserve transfers for the future replacement of that asset, as well as any applicable debt payments if it's debt funded. Once again, any of these impacts will ultimately likely increase in some impact on the tax levy or utility rates. With that, administration will take any feedback or direction from council this evening and incorporate it into the proposed 2025 budget document that will be presented to council in October. With that, I'll turn the floor back over to council. Thank you.
Hey, Mr. Blanco, appreciate that. Any questions, Mr. Blanco? We're moving to closed session for our discussion on future capital plans. Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Blanco. I'll entertain a motion now from council to move into closed session. Remember, any member of council willing to make that motion? Councillor Penrod. Oh, sorry, Madam Clerk.
We need a motion just to accept the report for information first before we move into closed session.
I apologize. Thank you. I'll move that the July 16, 2024 council review the 10-year capital plan report you received for information. Thank you, Madam Clerk, for reminding me of that. Any discussion on the motion to receive for information? Seeing none, thank you, council. Would you please vote on the motion? That carries unanimously, 7-0 in favor. Thank you, council. With that, I will then look for a motion to move in camera. Councillor Penrod, I'm going to come back to you for that. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll move that the council move into closed session at 7:26 p.m. pursuant to the Freedom of Information Protection of Privacy Act, Section 29.
Thank you, councillor. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, council, would you please vote on the motion to move in camera? Also carries unanimously. Thank you, council. We'll move into closed session once we are no longer live. Joining from somebody. All right, thank you. We are live back after our closed session, and we have a motion arising out of a closed session, which I'll make myself. The administration incorporate into the 2025 proposed capital budget high-level cost estimates the following items: bike racks on transit buses, modifications to existing facilities or alternate facilities, indoor or outdoor for the arts, other than CCBCC. Update on the noise abatement at CCBCC. Cenotaph design and siting, upgrade water spray park with a closed water system and new additional features. E-scooter system, combine new tennis and pickleball courts, existing city lands, dock for Four Seasons Pond, temporary ice shacks, expanding crosswalks at 2 more permanent sites, outdoor fitness equipment, solar panels for BSRC, completion of trail along 510 West portion, completion of trail along RR 241 from Country Club Drive to Country Club Drive to 50th Avenue, BMX pump track, existing city lands, expansion and acceleration of park bench program on walking trails, but that's what I meant by that, and batting cage between diamonds 4 and 5 at the existing West Recreation site. Council, thank you for the discussions. Discussion on the motion at this time, please. See no discussion on the motion. Council, I'll ask you to vote on the motion before you for budget 2025. And that carries unanimously, 7-0 in favor of the motion. Thank you, council. Thank you, administration, for staying. That concludes our business of the special council meeting. At this time, we are adjourned at 8 p.m.